Why do they wear robes over top of armour? That does not seem like a good idea. Wow, didn't think that many people liked Dark Angels. I mean, I know there's a lot of Space Marine fans out there like myself, but wow, thank you so much for interacting with me. I really do mean that. It's very humbling, so thank you. This week, what we're going to look at is the robes. So last week, we looked at how I got the green armour. This week, the other main part of it is going to be those robes, the hoods, how we painted those up with that bone white Dark Angel look. Okay, so let's just jump into it, guys. Let's get to the painting desk and see how I did it. Okay, so let's start off. We're going to use a wet palette. If you've not got one, it's not a problem. It's just how I prefer to work. Keeps my paints nice and wet, nice and moist, and I've got some of my homemade thinner on there. If you want to know how to make that, I'll put a link up in the corner. It's in one of my other videos. So, first thing we're going to do is grab that Citadel Xandri dust, and we're just going to base coat everything. Nice, thin down, a couple of coats. Just make sure we've got nice coverage on there. We don't really need to worry about the under highlighting here. We're just going to make sure we get it on nice and smooth. Not too thick. We don't want to obscure the detail. Just watch what you're doing around the armour. We don't want to end up breaking any of the good work we've already done there. And you don't really need to use this on Dark Angels. It'll go really well on any sort of mini. So Black Templars, even some Age of Sigma models, it absolutely doesn't matter. You can use this technique for painting cloth and robes on anything. Just make sure you don't miss any bits. Nice, thin coats, like I say. Being careful around all the parts that we don't want to get the paint on. And let it dry between those coats. Come back and here with another coat. So there we are. Nice and opaque. Job's a good one. Next stage. Cracking open some of that Agrax Earth shade from Citadel. It's a wonder wash is this. What we're going to do is we're going to paint it into the recesses. I'm not thinning it down straight from the pot here. I'm just being very careful. I'm not throwing it on like you would a wash. I'm actually painting it on nice and easily down into those recesses, making sure it's dry between each coat. And what we're going to do is we're going to build up the wash as we want it to be darker, obviously in the deeper recesses and up towards where the shadows would be. So that's going to be dependent on your model. So just have a good look at it. Make sure you're hitting all of those little bits of crease, and then coming back, putting a little bit more on. It's much easier to add more than it is to take away, remember? So, long strokes, nice and neat as possible. Don't worry if it's not, we can come back and tidy it up a little bit later on with some of the Xandri dust. In fact, we're going to do that. But you need to do this in layers, guys. So, look at where the light would naturally hit it, and you know, it doesn't have to be natural. If you think it looks cooler, darker, so you've got that higher contrast, you go with that. I'm much more of a fan of going with the dark contrast in the recesses here, so just in putting multiple coats on. Next stage, we're going to bust out that Ashanti bone, thin it down with a bit of that homemade thinner, and what I like to do is I like to get on the back of my nail, so I know it's the right consistency. Not too thick at all. This is almost glazing, but not quite. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit the highest point of the mini where the light would naturally hit. So there you can see it on the back of my nail. It's opaque, but not too opaque. And we're just painting it on. So we're not doing an edge highlight. We're kind of hitting where the light would fall. Again, this is not 100% accurate. We're going with the rule of cool. That's my thing. If it looks cool to me, that's what I'm going to go with. So imagine the light falling down and then dispersing, and those lighter points are really going to contrast with the deeper shades we put in the previous step. Again, don't worry, it's going to look quite disjointed at the moment, but we're going to bring it all together in one of the later stages. So just make sure you hit all those little bits and details. Don't just go for the bigger sweeping areas where the light had kind of like pour down. Make sure you just get the bits like on the stomach part there. It's really important to draw the eye up to the mini, because we really want people looking at the face as well as all of the other cool little details. So here we are getting some of the Vallejo bone white, and what we're doing is we're just doing basically what we did in the previous stage but in a smaller area. It's quite similar to the Citadel style is this, isn't it? So again, smaller areas of where the light would fall. Ideally, towards the tips, towards the edges, but you don't have to be limited there. Again guys, rule of cool, go with what your eye's telling you. Just make sure the paints are nice and thin. And what you'll notice here is that I'm not just doing downward strokes, I'm doing cross strokes as well. And not in even ones. I'm almost stippling, but horizontally. So we're getting almost a micro texture in there, and what we're going to do is we're going to alternate between horizontal and vertical tiny strokes to give it almost like that cross-hatched appearance. So we get like a texture of cloth. Jumping back to Zandri Dust to clean things up. So going to really thin this down now guys. Whatever it is you use to thin your paints, water, paint thinner, whatever, make sure it is super nice and thin. And this is where the time comes in. You're going to have to go backwards and forwards between the colours. This is where you're going to get your nice creamy gradients. But how we're going to do that? We're going to do it with, rather than up and down strokes, we're going to alternate, remember, between up and down and side to side. So think of cross-hatching, think about how a weave in the fabric is going to go. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You want to get texture, you want to get it so it's feeling like there's something there that's not totally smooth. So the highlights wouldn't be perfect. This shot highlights it a little bit better. How we're getting the Zandri Dust and we're kind of going over where we had the Ashanti bone and the bone white, and it's tying them together because the paint's so opaque, it's adding that filter to it. It's knocking it back just a little bit. So you see what we're doing here? We're going across, 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 across. Sometimes I'm going down and then bringing the highlights straight to the point. So remember where your brush leaves, that's where the paint's going to be brightest. Right, off-white, this is the last stage. Again, we're going to thin it down, super thin, easy to add more, not so easy to take away. And we're going to hit the brightest points. This is where the contrast is really going to make it pop, and also where you're going to see much more of the detail in that texture. So, crossword strokes, can't emphasize this enough. Get yourself a reasonably good brush. I'm using a small base by Citadel one here. I don't know why I'm using this brush at the moment, I quite like it. It's got a decent tip on it, and for the scale that we're working at, it's absolutely fine. Make sure you're keeping your paint nice and thin, that's the key to it here. So test it on the back of your nail, back of a glove, whatever it is. And once you've done this guys, that's it. So just take it to the level that you're comfortable with.
And we're back. What did you think? Fairly easy, isn't it? Not that many colours. And to be honest, you can put as much effort or as little effort in as you want. If you want to go with the more standard Games Workshop style of shade, layer, highlight, you can get away with that. I prefer to go for a little bit more of the blending in. And as you can see, I'm really enjoying the micro textures kind of thing. I think it really helps with the transitions if you're not going to use an airbrush or you don't want to glaze things overly. And also it just gives that extra little bit of detail, like that robe is made out of something like quite hard wearing an Essian or something like that. That kind of thing. Do you put textures on there? What do you guys do? I'd be really interested to know, so hit me up down in the comments and let me know. If you're not already, you can find me over on all of the social medias. I'm most active over on Instagram, but you can find me on Reddit. Apparently I have a Facebook page as well, so you can find Forge of Solace on there. So, as always guys, if you did get some value out of this, please give it a thumbs up. If you know somebody that might get some value out of it, please do share it with them. If you're not already, please do subscribe. Next time we're going to look at how we painted the red on the gun casings. So, until then, remember, if you're going to do crap, make sure it's plastic. See ya!